good afternoon, brothers and sisters of the Combatives Church. Today, I would like to speak to you about the importance of staying true to oneself and one's family, no matter what the outside pressures. And there's no better example of this than our favorite fighter, MMA fighter, Nick Diaz. Many of you may know Nick Diaz as a fierce competitor in the octagon. A skilled striker and grapplers face some of the toughest fighters in the world. But what you may not know is Nick Diaz is also a man who has faced immense pressure to conform to society's norms, and yet has remained true to himself and his family. It's this honesty and rawness which makes him so appealing to the rest of us. Nick was born in the United States and grew up in Stockton, California. Violence was very common, and it was himself that had to step up and protect himself, as well as his siblings. Because of course, no Nick Diaz story is ever complete without the inclusion of Nate. This violence, along with the realization of the fact that the family tended not to have much money and a large amount of food insecurity, took a toll on Nick's life. At this point, all of the siblings realized they were not as well off as their classmates. Violence became a way to protect themselves, and it was something that they embraced. Nick, as well as his brother Nate, found solace in the martial arts, training in karate and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from a young age. Even though the training is hard, and like all Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, they feel like they're not very good at it, the boys never stop training. Now, the interesting part of this story is that, part of the reason they trained was to get better at fighting, but part of it was because the older members of the school would buy their brothers something to eat at the food truck pulled up next to the academy after class. The boys embraced this because they had found what they wanted to do with their life now. So let's take a step back for a minute. Have you looked at your life recently and done the things that you have to do because you recognize where you are? Have you stepped up and changed your spending habits because you realized you didn't have the income, or put in the extra hours at work to get that income? Have you realized that you didn't have the skills to make it to the next steps in life? And with that, are you willing to take that extra time and learn those skills? Have you wondered why the people around you don't respect you or don't want to be with you? But if you looked up why and what actions you can do so you don't want to be there, this is where the boys were at. They realized they needed to get to the next step. All they wanted to do was fight. So what are they going to do? They're going to keep training. So, as we get back to Nick, we know he's got his fight career, but when we look at him staying true to himself, we have to touch on his cannabis use. Now, I'm not saying cannabis use is a good thing or a bad thing, just that Nick, and of course Nate, does it. This is not a debate, this is just a fact that these brothers use cannabis. There's a number of times that his pre or post-fight drug test has come back saying he had cannabis in his system, and it's a lot of times. It's rumored that in his Pride fight, fighting Takanori Gomi, his THC level in his bloodstream was so high that he had to literally be smoking, hotboxing his dressing room just prior to coming out to the fight. This is not a debate on cannabis, but this is Nick Diaz. He smokes some cannabis and then goes out and fights amazing fights. He's never shied away from promoting or advocating for legal cannabis use, and he's parlayed this into his own cannabis brand. So this is a reminder that just because something is stigmatized by society, it doesn't mean that it's inherently wrong. And we should not be ashamed of things that bring us peace and balance, as long as it does not harm others. That being said, the Diaz brothers are the only people that I'm aware of that smoke a bunch of cannabis and then go run a triathlon. Nick has also faced pressure to conform to the expectations of the MMA industry. The sport is often criticized for its violence, and many fighters are pressured to adopt a ruthless kill or be killed mentality. But Nick has always stayed true to his values, refusing to trash talk or engage in pre-fight antics. He fights with respect for his opponents and conducts himself with humility and sportsmanship. And perhaps most importantly with this, Nick has always stayed true to his family. Throughout his career, he's made it clear that his family is his top priority, and he will always put them first. He has even turned down fights that would have paid him more money, but would have taken him away from his family for too long. In conclusion, brothers and sisters, Nick Diaz is a shining example of what it means to stay true to oneself and one's family, despite the pressures of society. And just like Nick, we too can find the strength and discipline to remain true to our values, no matter what the world may say. Let us all strive to be like Nick Diaz, a true warrior in every sense of the word. Amen.